So the big thing we just found out was that they did release I might have mentioned it earlier, but they did open up the Fantasy Formula 1 for 2024.
Yeah.
Which is huge. So I want to talk about 2023 and how all that worked to give a good foundation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then we can dive into 2024 and we can do our drafts live. So my vote would be when we get back together here in a couple days, we can do a live draft where we pick out drivers, talk about it, whatever.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's get everyone on the same page as to how this all works.
Okay.
And then, we'll be off and rolling.
Sweet. So you get, as per 2023, you get 5 drivers and 2 constructors, and you only have $100 million to spend on them. And this is the big difference between fantasy football in the United States and fantasy Formula 1 is in fantasy football, you have, if I have a player, you cannot have the player. And the leagues are a lot smaller. So I could have one fantasy league with you. I could have another fantasy league with my family.
Yeah.
I could have another fantasy league with my cousins. And they're all finite different pools, right? So I could, and there's this, I've played fantasy football some and just never been that good at it.
Oh, no.
That's true,
same
right?
Here. Yeah, you've got your office pool, you've got your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's individual closed competitions.
With fantasy Formula 1, it's worldwide.
Oh,
so you can have it subdivided into smaller pools.
Sure.
Like I had my friends league with people from work and people I knew all over the world, and there's only 16 of us.
Yeah.
But everybody, once you join Fantasy F1, you're in the global league, where in 2023 there was like 2.4 million people playing.
Incredible. Okay.
And
yeah, that's very different.
We can all have the same drivers. So the drivers aren't simple and finite. There is a non-zero chance that all 2.4 million or however many million people play it, all pick the same person. All pick the exact same lineups and everything.
Sure.
It won't happen. There's enough variation. And I did the math on it. But there's just south of 700,000 ways to set up a Formula 1 team.
Okay.
That's with having 5 drivers and 2 constructors, right?
Sure.
I did the math on that. Like 5 factorial, 2 factorial, not exclude, no, whatever, how that works. So they have to put in a price cap.
Okay.
And that is the great equalizer. So now, otherwise, everybody, to your point, would have Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
And everybody would have the best drivers and the best constructors. Well, now, like in 2023, Max Verstappen was like $30 million.
Interesting.
So as soon as you get Max Verstappen on your team, there's a third of your budget, or 30% of your budget is out the window for him.
Yeah.
And you must fill the 5 slots for the drivers and the 2 slots for the constructors.
Okay.
You can't have less drivers, because otherwise it'd be better to have your lower 2 spots just not be filled. But the problem is if you only have $100 million and the lowest drivers are like 5 million, top drivers are 30, there is no way around not filling those bottom slots with your Haas's and your Alpines and the more questionable drivers that could end up costing you points rather than giving you points.
Okay. Well, cool. So with that, I've got a fairly straightforward, dumb question, which is why I'm here. So those of you who don't know I'm here, Paul's doing all the talking here because he's done this a couple times. I'm here because we need an audience surrogate. If you ever watch one of those police procedural shows, there's the, hey, I'm getting too old for this. And then you got the, hey, I'm the loose cannon, but I love this in my life. And then you've got the wide-eyed rookie who's just like, I believe in justice and system. But usually writers will introduce that character so they have an excuse to go through the entire department and be like, oh, that's the forensics team, and oh, this is IT.
Yeah.
Oh, here's our lawyer. He gets in the way of us getting our job. But that it gives them a reason to explain all of this. So most of you, thank you for your patience and bearing with me in these questions. But I'm here for the guys who are just breaking into the sport for the first time. I'm going to ask those dumb questions just so we can get that out there and make sure that everyone's on the same page. So with that, my question is, we've got a limited budget here to build out our teams. Mm-hmm. Where do we go to identify, okay, how much is Lewis Hamilton going to cost me this year?
And so you can just go to the website with it. And so on the F1, so there's a Fantasy Formula 1 website, right? Okay. And this is all online, and F1 itself regulates the price of everybody. And everyone's price goes up and goes down as the season progresses. Usually every year, about $500,000 in value gets added to the pool.
Okay.
So as soon as you buy, like for example, last year, when you go to log into a website and you go to click your team and you have, let's say you get Lando Norris.
Yeah.
He started out last year at $11 million. So for 1/10 of your 11% of your overall budget, you could get him on your team.
Yeah.
Fast forward 5 or 6 races, he's worth 13, 14, 15, 18 million.
Okay.
So if you sell him, you get 18 million back. Now you have more of an overall budget to buy and sell other people.
Oh, interesting.
But
so I'm reselecting my team every week.
You don't need to.
But I can.
You can.
Okay.
You can, but the problem is most everybody's driver over the course of the year, everybody increased in value except for our countryman, Logan Sargent. He actually decreased in value. No, he increased. I think it was I have to double check. I think I made this mistake earlier. It was Nick DeVries is the only one who decreased. Logan Sargent had a negative fantasy points for the year.
Okay.
So if you would have been better off to not have him at all.
Oh, sure.
To have an empty spot, but you can't do that. So, but Nick DeVries actually got into the negative fantasy. His value actually decreased, which is one of the reasons why he only hung around for half season. But everybody's value increases over time.
Okay, so I start off the season with $100 million,
yes.
But I can have a cumulative value at some point in the season that exceeds that.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
All right.
But and what it sucks is, and the reason why they do it is, let's say there's a driver that we really like, right? Who like, for example, this year it's Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah.
He's coming in at probably $5 or $6 million in value.
Sure.
As soon as he starts winning, that number's going to skyrocket. Which means if you get Daniel Ricciardo at the beginning of the season for $6 million, and then he goes and starts winning races, his value is going to jump to 15 or 20 million.
Okay.
And now, in order for me to get him, I have to pay his true value now, or you gambled on him earlier. And the important thing to realize is that the pool is always increasing in value every week by about $500,000 total, spread out over 20 drivers.
Okay.
Everything's always increasing. I didn't realize it until I ran the stats on the 2023 season. The value is always increasing. So as soon as you come in halfway through and you know who's good and who's bad, you're going to be paying more money to jump in at that point than somebody who guessed right.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. But what I want to do is I want to pay attention to, so if somebody suddenly gets hot, they win a race, I really want to pay attention to how they won that race.
Exactly.
Did they win because 17 other people crashed?
Exactly.
Because they'll be hot that week, then the following week they're not going to increase in value that much more. So I will have burned. And I will have burned cash on him.
And one of the jokes I keep making is the fact that that's why I lost my little friends league, right? For the 16 of us.
Yeah.
Is because I was not quick, but I got on the Lando Norris and the McLaren train pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so I started riding all that. It was great, but I did not buy back into Ferrari because I'd been burned by them so much. And it's a love-hate. Like, I'm open about how I should have gotten onto the Ferrari bandwagon before I tried to.
Yeah.
But once Ferrari started improving towards the end of the year, I couldn't afford to get back on the Ferrari train. And the one person who beat me, I went from first to fourth by like 6 points. So there was over 6,900 points.
Yeah.
All season last year. I missed first place by, I think it was like 6 or 12.
Oh,
points.
wow.
And the reason was, and I saw it, is the guy who did win in our little league, I completely divested in Ferrari, had no faith in him.
Yeah.
He got Ferrari on like when they got the new upgrade or whatever. Then I forget whether it was Sainz or Leclerc, but one of them was doing great. And I saw it coming, but I did not have enough money to buy into Ferrari.
Oh, no.
Unless I got rid of other people who I knew were going to bring in good points.
Sure.
So I watched it coming, and I went ahead and tried to get Sergio Perez in and all that. But Sergio Perez, he was fine, but he wasn't making these leaps and bounds like the Ferrari was at the very end of the year.
I'm with you.
And I saw the fact that I was going to lose 2 races before I did.
Yeah.
Because of the trend. And there's nothing I could do about it. Where if I had at the beginning of the year said, nah, or when Ferrari was doing bad, if I was like, no, I still believe in them and bought into Ferrari, I would have won.
Gotcha.
But I didn't. So I still ended up finished up in like the top 3% of the world. But one of the guys who was better than me was in my league. And so then I watched at the very end, he beat me.
Okay. So to summarize, though, so you get 2 constructors, 5 drivers.
Yep.
Throughout the season. Typically, they will all begin to increase in value.
Correct.
Based on their performance throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
And so the weight of that increase in value will be adjusted based on their performance.
Correct.
So ideally, what you want to do is start off with the best driver you can, but then keep an eye out for lower value up and comers who are starting to perform.
Correct.
Because that way you can make that initial investment go somewhere, and you can kind of ride that wave.
And so on this podcast, I came up with like a tier system, right?
Okay.
So just like military special forces, you have tier 1 on down, right?
Yeah.
Tier 1 are the blank check people who go out and do good things. So you have your tier 1 drivers. I haven't gotten to this point to constructors yet. Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 drivers, they cost over $20 million or more. And those are your Max Verstappens, your Hamiltons, your probably Lando Norris's this year.
Okay.
Your 20 million or more drivers, and you get a good return on investment. So there's a factor called points per million. So you want to make sure that you're getting a good return on your investment.
Absolutely.
Right? And so last year, the greatest drivers like Max Verstappen had 1.5 points per million over the average over the course of the season. Your lower end drivers had like 0.4 or 0.2.
Okay.
Right? And so your tier 1, if they cost 20 million or more, you want to get a PPM of over 1.
Gotcha.
So, which means any race, as soon as you pay $20 million to have them on your team for a race, you should get at least 20 points from them.
Okay.
Right? 25 million, you should get 25 points from them. And usually if you win or you come in the top 3, you'll get around 30.
Sure.
But it's more of a metric for in between for us.
So can we take it? So I like this analysis.
Okay.
And I like the tier system. I want to revisit that at some point soon. But before we get before we get down into that,
yeah. Sorry.
Can we talk about how you score points?
Yes.
In a race.
Yes.
So does that includes qualifying and the race, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So qualifying day, how do you get points?
How do you get points is by qualifying well, finishing in the top 10.
Okay.
Okay. So, and it's not quite that simple. So the better you qualify,
okay,
at the end of the day, the better you qualify, the more points you get. I'd have to look at my, let's see if I can pull that up. And I forget what the exact numbers are because maybe it'll change this year. But whoever qualifies first gets X number of points for qualifying first and second and third, all the way down to like 9 or 10. If you're a constructor and your drivers make it into the second round of qualifying or the third round of qualifying, you get a bonus. So as soon as you're a constructor and as soon as one of your constructors has both cars getting into the third round of qualifying, where you're going to get a 10, 15 point bonus or however it works.
Yeah.
And that's spread out over 20 races, which as soon as, call it 10 races, if you have one of your constructors gets both people into qualifying, into your third round of qualifying, you're looking at, 100 points?
Oh, wow.
Over the course. If let's say it's a 10-point bonus, I forget what it is. But let's say it's a 5-point bonus even. If it's a 5-point bonus and over 20 races, you get into qualifying, both cars into the third stage of qualifying, you get that 5-point bonus.
Yeah.
That's an extra 100 points right there.
Okay, so bonuses are a massive.
They're about a quarter to a third of the overall points you get.
Interesting.
And I could pull up the stats, but I won't. I'll say that for the next episode. This is broad strokes. I pulled up the stats and I did the math on it, and yeah, a solid third or a quarter, depending on the team. And I guess it's like Alpine or AlphaTauri. They had less fantasy points overall total than just bonus fantasy points that Red Bull had.
Sure.
So as soon as you get a lower end constructor over the long haul, you can't. You need to have those top tier constructors on.
Gotcha. So would you prioritize a high performing constructor over a high performing driver?
I would. And the reason being is you get the points from the drivers as a constructor. So if you have two drivers who both get 25 points a race, I as a constructor will get 50 points.
Okay.
And as soon as both of them make it to Q3, when I'm getting that additional bonus 5 points, and stuff like that. Whereas soon as you go for a lower tier constructor, but you have the better drivers, and how about this? There's probably some way to balance that out, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
There's probably some way where you can go ahead and sacrifice your, and how about this? I don't know if there might not be so much of a huge price gap between the bottom tier constructors and the top tier constructors, because if you can get Red Bull for 20 million, but you can get the bottom, like your Alpines, your Haas's, for 9 million as a constructor. That's only $10 million. It's 10% of your budget.
Yeah. But
you would get a lot better return on investment to get that. If you're getting a 3-to-1, if that 50% of budget equates to a 5x value in points.
Yeah.
And I'd have to work the numbers on those. But in general, yes, you want to have great constructors.
Sure.
Because as long as their drivers are doing well, you will be pulling in those points.
Yep. I'm with you. All right.
So if qualifying.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, it's my fault.
No, you kept me on track. This is
so with qualifying, how well you do and how far into qualifying you get, that all equates to points.
But all starting at the top 10.
But all starting at the top 10.
So
if you qualify 15th, it doesn't.
You're getting no points at all. Day.
Ooh, so when it comes to the race day, though, every position you finish higher or lower than your starting position, you get a point.
Is this as a racer or as a constructor?
As
or both?
Both. Okay. Because as soon as there are a few categories where it doesn't translate over, but in theory, if your driver gets 25 points, you as a constructor get that 25 points. So your driver, if you start 5th and finish 10th, you'll get -5 points for that one aspect. And because you get those less 5 points, that's less points your constructor gets.
Okay, so this is very interesting because now all of a sudden you've got these top tier drivers that you've spent a lot of your money on, who are typically going to be starting in maybe the top 5 spots. Yeah. Now they're a liability on that front.
If you spin out and suddenly let's say you, kind of what we were talking about earlier, right? If you're on the front row and you get tapped, you spin out. You don't even crash, but you spin out. Well, then the whole field passes you.
Right. So
you just went -20 points.
Right. So I like that because so who's driving for Haas now? Is Magnussen still driving?
Yeah, they're the same.
So that could make him somewhat desirable because you're likely to see him starting lower.
Exactly.
Lower, and you're going to gain.
Unless
he does something dumb.
You're going to gain points with him.
Correct. Now, what are the points awarded for finishing the race in first, second, third, fourth, fifth?
It's substantial. It's like 25 for finishing. It's not. I'd have to look back at how they're doing it, but it draws a correlation with the FIA points.
Gotcha.
So if you finish 10th, you get like 1 fantasy point. If you finish first, you get like 30 or something like that.
I see. Okay.
Right, and it's exponential. So the drop off's exponential.
So with those higher tier racers, you're willing to chase that higher purse more than the potential gain.
Exactly. So as soon as you're Max Verstappen, if you look at his points over last year, a lot of time he would finish first with like 35 points.
Okay. This makes me feel a little bit better because as you're explaining the factorial calculations of over 700,000, why would you 500,000 people are going to pick the same lineup, the same lineup that allows them to afford the best driver and the best constructors. But because of this variable here, there's it's not that there's no shame. It's there's actually some very good strategy to picking lower tier drivers, to making your money last a little longer, picking a better constructor, so you're getting those higher tier driver points initially. But you're investing in the potential of those lower tier drivers.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And so you also get 1 point for each person you pass, each overtake you make, except if they are crashed or they're in the pits, or they're on an outlap, or they're on an inline.
Oh, okay.
So
you can't rely on disaster.
Exactly. Okay. So here's a cool thing, right? You're faster than me. You, for some reason, you qualified P20.
Yeah.
You pass 5 cars, right? Over the first several laps, you pass 5 cars on merit. You overtake them. Then you go into the pits for tires. We all pass you. You gain 5 points from passing all of us. Because you were in the pits, we do not get points for passing you back.
Interesting. Explain that one more time for me.
So if you are on the entrance or the exit from pit, or if you're in the pits, you being overtaken or cars passing you doesn't count positive for them or negative for you.
Yeah, they didn't do it.
So if we're both racing and you pass me, you get +1 point, I get -1 point because you passed me on merit.
Yep.
If I'm going into the pits and you pass me, nothing.
You are where you are. Okay.
But why this is important is, let's say you start 20th, but the 5 cars in front of you are slower than you overall. You can pass them all in the first few laps. Then you go into the pits. They pass you back. You're still 5 points ahead. They're 1 point behind each.
See, I don't know how I feel about that, though.
But then you come out of the pits.
Yeah.
And you're faster than them again. And you pass them all again. And now you just made 10 points, and you never got out of the bottom 6.
Okay, I see that.
So your lower tier drivers, your $500,000s, your Williams and your Haas's and stuff, they can put up just fine points fighting and overtaking and doing things like that in the bottom 10, where in the overall, like in the true FIA real world, they're just fighting for scraps and they're not getting any points. But we in the fantasy world really care about that, because somebody could walk out 5 or 10 points in the good, and they never made it into the top 10.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And where it really could, so the highest points possible is when you qualify low, finish high.
Yes.
So Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez both, and Lando Norris both had 50-point plus weekends. Because Sergio Perez did it, he messed up his engine or whatever, qualified 20th.
Yeah.
Had to start at the back of the pack, finished the race 5th.
Oh, wow.
So he had just 15 points based on that. Plus you get 10, 20, however many points for finishing 5th.
Gotcha.
Right? So he had a huge points weekend. And Max Verstappen, he got penalized down to 15th, came back to win the race, or came back with second. He had like 60 points that weekend.
Nice.
So you want great drivers, and the inverse is true. This is why Ferrari kept getting schwacked, because Ferrari had great one-lap pace. So they'll qualify top 10, top 6.
And just so I'm clear, schwacked is an official F1 term, right?
It is.
That's a new one
Schwacked
for
is
me.
an official F1 term.
Right.
Exactly. That's from the cornfields of Indiana. Schwacked.
That's a new one for me. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. So, but Ferrari, they would qualify really well, and for like, hey, look at them, they're top 3, they're top 6.
Yeah,
this is doing great. But then they fall off and they finish out of the points. They finish out of the top 10, or they finish 12, or they finish 10th.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as you have Charles Leclerc and you're paying, let's say Charles Leclerc and you're paying $23 million for him, he qualifies. Let's say he qualifies second. Well, that's great. You get your 8 points or however much from qualifying well.
Yeah.
But then he gets passed by half the field and he finishes 10th. So now he goes negative points.
Oh, yeah.
So now let's say, and I forget how many you get for qualifying. Let's say you get 10. Well, now he goes -8. So now he only has 2 points. So now you spent $23 million on somebody who got you in the single digit of points. When if you had gotten one of the lower tier drivers, maybe who started 15th and finished 9th, you could have gotten 10 or 20 points off them.
Yeah.
And for a third of the value, for a third of the cost.
Yep.
So,
or even if you pick a driver in a season that their constructor's having severe engineering issues or recurring power loss or fluid leak or something like that, you can actually still end up in the black here, because you start lower in a lower position, have to retire 2/3 of the way through the race, but you depending on how they did, you can still actually end up with points.
You still actually end up in the positive with points, because you get that -20 for DNFing, but you won't.
Oh, I forgot about the -20. Thank you.
Yeah, -20 for DNFing. But to your point, as soon as you passed a lot of people and passed back and forth and whatever, or if there's a good, or you qualified well or whatever, you can still end up in the positive. Where it gets really depressing is when, like, when you have those drivers that they get not classified they don't participate in qualifying, or they just didn't do well, and you get that huge negative, because as soon as you get one -20 points for a DNF, and your driver only brings in 5 or 10 points a race, which is all you're really looking for from the bottom tier.
Right.
Well, let's say it's 5 points. One of those races you get -20. That means a quarter of your season is now washed at 0.
Oh, no.
Because if they got 3 5s, so you're there at 15, and then the 4th round they get a -20.
Sure.
So now you're actually negative. Let's say 5. Yeah. You get 20 points for the 5 each for the first 4 rounds, and then you get a -20. Now after 5 rounds, a quarter of the season, you're back at 0.
Okay. So another consistency with between this and fantasy football is early on you can see the writing on the wall. Oh,
yeah.
Well, here's the thing though. You don't have to. What's nice about this versus fantasy football is you kind of have to rely on the hope that you can trade for a player or claim someone off waivers. Where with this is like, okay, this guy's not performing. I'm going to sell him. I might lose a little bit of money, but guess what? There's still so much more upside and opportunity with whoever I can pick up along the way. It's not dependent on someone else within your league.
That's a good point. I didn't think about it. You're right, because like in the fantasy football league that we had last year, there was a point when my father-in-law, Bob really wanted to do a trade. He just didn't have the right people. He didn't draft the right people, and that was it. And everybody who had the good people, they're not going to trade their good people.
No.
There's a whole strategy, I imagine, of like getting a whole bunch of good people and just benching them so no one else can have them.
Oh, for sure. And no one likes that guy.
No.
It's smart, but no one likes that.
No one likes that. But also you're not doing your job if you like, oh, here's a good player for you and a good player for you. Here you go. So in that situation, he was like, well, he knew he was going to come in 3rd or 4th or whatever it was, because that's where it was, and he didn't have the players to get him up there.
Fantasy football is not about making friends. It's about having friends and then like making fun of them throughout the season.
Exactly.
Isn't that how it works? Yeah.
And with this, though, there is none of that. With this, it's all on the team manager, the player, because if we're halfway through the season and we're like, man, my strategy isn't working and your strategy is, I'm the reason I can't, like, I might not be able to buy into your strategy.
Yeah.
If you have, man, you went really heavy with McLaren and this one driver from AlphaTauri, which is getting you 20 points a race. Mm-hmm. Well, now suddenly he's not worth 4 million or 5 million. Now he's worth 9 million again.
Yeah.
And I don't have enough money to buy into that strategy. And there's no one to blame but me.
Right.
You can't point to someone else and say, well, he's keeping the good driver. I can't get him.
And based on that, you can also lose your window to emulate someone else's strategy.
Absolutely.
Very cool. I like that. Individual racer points. Are there any other elements?
There's a lot.
Okay.
So you have qualifying position.
I keep saying racer. It's driver.
Driver, right? Racer, but that's fine. Same. But
car guy.
The car vroom vroom make go fast. Like, and there's a lot of, and I'd have to read up on what's going on for this 2024 season.
Yeah.
But you have your starting position, your ending position. There's a delta there. You have your qualifying, how well you qualify and how well you finish. Those are independent.
Okay.
You have getting into the next round of qualifying. And I think there was one that, like, it's basically versus you get a bonus whichever driver beats out their teammate gets like a few points bonus.
Oh, interesting.
And there's little things like that. None of them are big deal breakers, but there's little things like that where as soon as you get both drivers on one team, you're going to get one of those bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's not. I don't say I want to. That'd be a rabbit hole. And I'm looking forward to seeing what I should say that there is this year. But in the end, it's all about how high you finish and what the delta is from start to finish.
Yep.
And how high you finish. Those are the two big things, because as soon as you qualify high, finish low, you're screwed.
Yep.
If you qualify low, finish high, that's good. If you start high, finish high, that's good. So those are the big things. And then there's, like fastest pit time, you get like an extra point, but that's like 1 point or something.
Yeah.
And then there's driver of the day.
So these are what you're saying now. Would be considered bonuses.
These are bonuses.
Okay. Yeah. Rattle off a couple of those that you can think of off the top of your head, because I imagine it changes every year, or there's new ones every year. But what are some standards?
Fastest pit time.
Okay.
Fastest lap, which P.S. you only get that bonus if you're in the top 10.
Okay.
So if you finish 11th, but you have the fastest lap, well, it's going to go to second place.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah. Excuse me. So fastest pit time, fastest lap, you have whichever teammate is faster than the other teammate. So the fastest teammate gets a bonus.
Huh.
You have a driver of the day, which if you watch it on F1's website, which I do, and free plug for F1.com, right? So if you buy their annual subscription, you get to watch it, and you can live click into any one of the drivers' cockpits, and you can see where they're on. It's sick.
Oh, cool.
Love it. But also what they do is you get to vote. You get to log. They send the code or whatever, and you get to log into their website, and you get to vote for which driver is your favorite driver of the day.
Yeah.
They'll give 3 nominations or whatever based on how well they perform.
Right, okay.
And whoever wins gets like a point or two into their fantasy.
Interesting.
Thing. Yeah.
Okay.
And those are the ones that are just
that's a squirrely little system.
Oh, it is.
Because I mean, you've got all this merit-based stuff and and analysis of race times and improvement over time, and then it's just like, who's your favorite?
Who's your favorite? You like go.
So it's like, today, find the driver with a smiley face on the left side of his helmet.
Exactly.
If you see it, say the secret word and hit submit.
Exactly. Exactly.
What? Okay.
And I used to think all of last year, I was like, driver of the day stupid. Like I was not against it, but I was like, come on, really? Is this what we're doing?
I mean, I think it's silly, but
then I lost my fantasy season by 12, by 6 to 12 points.
So wait, why does that make you like it though? I think that would piss me off if it was like, wait, so that's the X factor,
right? It comes down to silly stuff like that.
Yeah.
When as soon as and it wouldn't have been necessarily that if you guess the right driver, then whatever, it's whoever gets the most points.
Sure.
That driver gets. But as soon as I had actually been an active participant, and I had waited until one of my drivers came up and I had voted for my driver, I could have closed the gap by a few points.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Right, and it's only it's only like 1 point a race. So there's only 23 points throughout the season.
There's got to be. I'm sorry. So, is there any kind of regulation of who gets more screen time? Because like, there's got to be has to be some outrage within the community of like, well, my guy, he's never on screen, for whatever reason. It's a conspiracy.
And you and I work for the federal government way too long, where we think regulations and oversight. The FIA. This is their independent thing. It's a multi-billion-dollar with a B organization. They do whatever the hell they want.
Right.
And as soon as they're like, you know what, we're going to change the rules for this. Everyone jump, public stance.
Oh yeah. That they're selling that as part of a sponsorship package.
Sure.
Like, you want the guy who's going to get the fantasy votes? Here he is. It'll be an extra $20 million.
Right. And I don't know I don't quite how they decide. Maybe it's who did something cool or not cool. I don't know. But yeah, it's a thing. Those are the bonuses I can think of. There's more. Like, and we can, when we go do the episode about, setting up our teams and drafting the guys and stuff like that, we can we'll definitely go through line by line in all of those.
And again, and don't get me wrong, like, as much as I prefer the meritocracy element of it.
Yeah.
It's fun that there's just something way out of left field.
Oh, absolutely.
It's very Calvin and Hobbes.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Let's go to Yukon Ho, right? Look, it's on the globe. It's not that far. Yeah.
Cool.
So that is how you get fantasy points as the driver. And then there's other bonuses and stuff for, like I said, the big bonuses for the teams, for the constructors, is if you get both drivers on the podium.
Okay.
Both drivers in the top 10. If you get both drivers, of course, into Q1, Q2, Q3. There's bonuses on the constructor side for how well your driver's doing. There's probably some like just constructor specific. Maybe that the pit road or the fastest pit stop was one of the constructor bonuses, not a driver bonus. I forget, but yeah, there's some of those.
Are there any fantasy build specific bonuses where it's like, both of or I guess 5 drivers.
Oh yeah,
never mind.
But you see, like both of
say both of my constructors made the podium. Is there something for that?
I don't remember. I have to look into that. I don't think. Yeah, if not, they should definitely add that. That'd be pretty cool. That'd be a huge bonus if you had both your constructors.
This is already like pretty convoluted in terms of like
the
number of ways you can score points. But if it was specific to the team that you've put together, if there's a certain level of
that would be
cumulative accomplishment, that'd be kind of neat.
That would be really good. Yeah, if you pick people and I imagine the bonus would be the fact that all your guys get a whole lot of really good points.
Oh sure. Yeah.
But yeah, for them to be actually a bonus and multiply that'd be.
That'd
be great.
Your team has already done so well that we're going to give you more points. Okay, yeah, no, you're right. That becomes a little arbitrary.
But that'd be pretty awesome, though. They should do that, and maybe that is there. Like I said, in the 2024, I haven't gone through the rules yet.
Gotcha.
So get to do that for next time.
All right. What else we got? So I'm seeing. So in summary, so far, 2 constructors on your team, 5 drivers. You have your $100 million budget.
Yep.
Value is assigned on the F1 fantasy website. Points starting in qualifying, where you get points for being in the top 10. You lose points as you are passed. You gain points as you pass others.
Yep.
Constructors get bonuses if their drivers both. Oh, I didn't finish my note there. Both get within the top 10.
Yeah.
On race day, 1 point per position improved from the start, except for those that you pass in the pits or crash or retire. Do not finish loses 20 points. You get points for getting into the next round of Oh, there it is. Points for getting into the next round of qualifying, but that should have been in my other section there. And then points awarded for the top 10.
Yeah.
And then bonuses that you kind of rattled off, and there's going to be new ones each year. Fastest pit time, fastest lap time, but only for the top 10.
Yep.
Being the faster teammate, driver of the day, both drivers on the podium.
I imagine. I think there's a bonus for that,
and then both drivers in the top 10.
I might be missing one of those up, but yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. What else? Do we have any other?
That's it, right? Like as far as broad strokes for scoring, that's it. Then there's the sprint races that come in.
Yeah.
And it's all the exact same.
Okay.
Except on a smaller scale. So there's just fewer points overall. You still get and the important thing with the sprints, I will say this, the important thing for the sprints, I left our little background went away.
Oh no.
I know. Here, let me see here. If you're watching this on a video, then you're like, wait, what podcast am I watching now? I don't know, because their little logo on the computer screen.
It's black. It's none more black.
And there we go.
There
We're back.
it is. We're professionals.
We are professionals. The big thing for the sprint is for the fantasy world is there's not a lot to gain, because if you win, I think you get like nine fantasy points, or you get 9 FIA points, but you get like a third. All the points are cut in like a third.
Okay.
So you get like 8 or 10 fantasy points for winning a sprint, but you still get -20 for crashing out.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh shoot.
So
okay.
there have been some races where, and I was looking at it for Sergio Perez, and one of the ones I've recorded but didn't publish. He finished second. I forget which race it was, but he finished second place with 7 points. And this guy, you spent $23 million on him. He gets you 7 points for a weekend, a net 7 points, because he qualified poorly. He qualified well for the race, qualified well for, or whatever, went for the sprint, and then he crashed out of the sprint. And so he got -20 points there.
Yeah.
And so when you add all up the goods and the bads, he gets like 7. And the problem is, again, and this is not a he equals bad driver thing. These are great drivers. The problem is the way it works out. Would they retire him if he took damage early in the sprint? They're just going to retire him and save his car for the actual race. Well, as soon as he gets a little fender nick, and they're like, well, I don't know about that for the aerodynamics and blah, 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 blah.
Let's go to points.
There goes your 20 points.
Oh, no.
So you can be sitting going, man, this driver's no good. No, he's fine. The team is doing what they want to do to win the championship.
They just don't care about your fantasy team.
They don't give a crap about fantasy Formula 1.
Which is good.
It really is.
Fantasy league anything is great because it increases your interest in and the visibility of those lower tier drivers and constructors, so that's great. Your level of investment jumps, but purely the actual league. I'm not league. The actual is it a league? The organization.
Yeah, that works.
Should have zero care or zero motivation. To please any kind of fantasy league.
You don't see Travis Kelce going to the Super Bowl and being like, man, got to get my 12 points, bro. You know,
I mean, you do see individual players who are like, I'm
true.
worth more than this.
Come on.
I'm not getting any points because no one's targeting me. That's going to happen. You've got personalities.
That's true. That's true.
And this would be a fun deep dive episode to see like how invested the individual drivers are in their fantasy standings. Like,
actually, that would be really good.
I mean, if this came out today, like how pissed off is driver X that he's only worth so many millions? Like, I'm sure that's a thing.
It has to be. These guys have huge egos.
Oh yeah.
You don't get to your point that you made earlier. Like, you don't get to be in there unless you are the sort of person that'll trample the weak, hurdle the dead. Like that's what you want.
Yeah.
So as soon as you're only come out you're like, man, I'm only worth $6 million.
Yeah.
I'm worth more than that. What are you talking about?
That's got to be a thing. So,
oh gosh.
So
that's awesome.
This is fun stuff though.
I love it.
It's cool.
I love it. What other questions do you have going down the list?
I do have another question, and that was so race day. Top positions get a certain number of points.
Mm-hmm.
Is it limited to the top 10?
Yeah. So you get for the finishing top 1 through 10.
Yeah.
Get points based on how they finish.
Okay.
Whether I finish P11 or I finish P20, points wise for where I finished, that's all same. It doesn't matter. However, what matters then is you still have all the other points for passing, for fast times, for finishing higher than you were, things like that. So all of those points still matter. So you can still finish 11, finish out of the points, and have 20 and have more points than somebody who's in the top 10.
Yeah.
So you don't get awarded fantasy points for your position win outside of the top 10.
Okay. So if I go from 20 to 10, I've gotten myself 10 points. If I go from 15 to 5, I've got 25.
Then you have 15 to 5. Then you have
whatever
the 10 plus that. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So okay. Cool.
Yeah. So, which is why what you want is somebody who will start low and finish high, or start high, finish high. If you can get that passing in, that is huge. But also as soon as you start high, finish low.
Gotcha.
Then you not only spent the money to get the start high, but you're finishing low, and so then you look and you're like, all right, this dude cost me a quarter of my overall budget, and they're bringing in negative points.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
And I think we talked about this once in a previous episode. you have to lock in you're allowed to go all the way through practice, but you have to lock in your team prior to qualifying, correct?
Correct. Okay. And there's one asterisk next to that. And it's a topic that we purposely haven't gotten into yet because I don't know how they're going to do it for the next year.
Yeah.
And so it's the object of like chips or tokens. Basically, you get the Dungeons and Dragons 5 special powers you get to use once. 6 special powers throughout this course of the season you can use once each.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
For each team. So you have 3 teams in one login. So you can have 3 different strategies going at the same time.
Okay.
But you have 6 special powers that you get to use once per team.
Healing.
Right, exactly.
Lightning bolts.
Lightning bolts.
Yep.
You have your tires of going really fast. Exactly.
Terrible drivers, but you know.
The necromancies, you get to bring a car back from the dead, and he gets to drive around somewhere.
There's some amazing crossover potential here.
There really is.
And I would watch that movie.
So and with one of these special powers you get is to make a one lineup change after qualifying before the race.
Okay, explain that to me.
So basically what it is, and you don't want to use it because, so let's say you had Max Verstappen, right?
Yeah.
$30 million expecting lots of points. He qualifies bottom. Well,
sweet.
Well, from our strategy suite,
yeah.
Most people just freak out and they think, oh my gosh, what's going on with Max Verstappen?
No, but it's Max.
It's Max.
At the bottom.
He's going, in the RB19, he's going to do well, right? But if you don't have the diamond fingers, or let's say for some reason you judge one of your guys as not doing well.
Is the diamond fingers another one of your powers?
I wish. That would be
that sounds
diamond hands,
cool.
right? Yeah, like with stock trading and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Can you imagine? That'd be awesome.
I was thinking just like from a combat perspective.
Oh right. Can you just right?
Diamond fingers. My eyes.
So you have the ability to swap out a driver. The reason why we don't want to do that in Fantasy Formula 1 is first off, starting low, if you have a good driver starting low, that's good. They can make those points back up, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
In general, and it's counterintuitive, but start low, finish high, that's a recipe for success. And as soon as you have somebody who normally does really well, who starts at the back of the pack, you're fine with that.
Absolutely.
Now, and it depends. Like, for example, Red Bull and in 2023, Red Bull would just pass everybody. As soon as you have an Oscar Piastri, who was for McLaren, and he starts 20th, he might get into the numbers. I mean, he might pass 5 or 6 people, but
sure.
His car just isn't over the top fast enough. He's not a passing machine like the Red Bull was, right?
Yeah.
But if you got Oscar Piastri in the top 10, then he can do great.
Yeah.
So you have that special power. So after you make the lock, after qualifying, if you want to use your special power, you can swap out. The only time you would want to do that is if a driver is injured and not racing in the race.
That's fair.
That is the only time you'd want to do that.
And you get to do this once per season.
Once per season.
Okay, so 23 races.
23 races, you can only do it once. And so that's why you wait for somebody to go to the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
God forbid, right? As soon as somebody crashes out and in qualifying, then if they're just starting at the back of the pack, you just accept it and you don't use this power for that. But as soon as they're like, hey, listen, he's got a broken arm, he's going to do fine, but he's not going to be at the race.
Sure.
And then what a lot of teams will do is they'll bring in their reserve driver, give them the reserve car, and tell them to good luck and don't die.
Yeah.
However, at least in 2023, they don't automatically make that switch for you.
Gotcha.
So
I am listening. I'm sorry.
What's fine?
No, it's just more and more.
Oh, about the special powers?
No. It's just, you when you were talking about the guy breaking his arm, and now I'm just imagining a guy who's like, no, I'm still good. He's just got one arm out.
Just do it. Like, no, we're fine.
Is rookie of the year style.
Right, right.
Okay.
Daniel Ricciardo would have done it, because he's the one who broke his arm last year, and he would have been like, man, I could just drive it. Come on, let's do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so. And then, because as soon as you have a good driver that qualifies poorly, just let it roll and count on them doing better.
Yeah.
And count on them passing people and still getting you some good points. If they're actually no kidding out, the F1 doesn't automatically swap in a new driver for you. Like the game doesn't let you do that. So if it's a low person, well, then maybe you're better off, right? As soon as you have the guy who naturally brings in -1 points, everything, you just can't get rid of him. Well, first off, figure out a way to get rid of him. But second off, as soon as he crashes, well, then fine, you just have that vacant spot, and that's good.
Okay, so with that, do you get whatever his market value was back in your budget?
You have to trade him.
Even if he's, dead?
Even if he's on the roster, you have to trade him.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's the crappy part.
Okay.
Is that, for example, as soon as you had, so Nick DeVries was out last year, and in comes Daniel Ricciardo. You spend your $4.5 million on Daniel Ricciardo. Well, then 2 races in, he crashes out, and they're literally flying in Liam Lawson, like on the jet.
Yeah.
He's sitting there getting his drink service, and like, well, sorry, I can't drink. Why? Well, first off, I don't know if I'm old enough, but second off, I have to be behind the wheel of an F1 car, the most powerful automobiles in the history of the planet.
Right.
I get to be driving this in 6 hours, So I had to sell Daniel Ricciardo for his market value, but they bring in the replacement driver at the bottom of the market, so $4.5 million.
Gotcha.
So Daniel's call it 5. I was able to get in with Liam Lawson at 4.5.
Okay.
Liam Lawson jumped up to like 6. And then when he was swapping out for Daniel Ricciardo, I was able to sell Liam Lawson and get Daniel Ricciardo back in for wherever he was at when he left.
I see. Okay.
So they make it so that it's not unduly done, but as soon as that happened in practice.
Okay.
So before the lock, we were able to make those moves.
Nice.
If that had happened in qualifying, you're done unless that's what you have the token for.
I see.
For that. So a lot of people are like, wow, I can just trade it if I really don't know. Don't touch that thing. That's your get out of jail free card. That's their one mulligan they give you if somebody qualifies and doesn't make it to the actual race.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I know we have a few more special powers to talk about, but following this explanation, how does caution affect your strategy in terms of putting your team together? Do you spend until you're broke when you initially go week 1, or do you keep maybe $5 or $6 million in reserve? What is that something that you consider, just to say, you know what, this driver's not working out, I got to sell him, and I need to get someone with a little more value, and you know what, I had this saved away for a rainy day. Oh,
I see what you mean. Yeah. I don't really purposely squirrel money away for a rainy day.
Okay.
If you have a lineup that makes sense, how about this? I will, if I have a lineup that I think in my gut makes sense, then I'll worry, and I have the money for it, then I'll go with that, and I won't really worry about how much money is left over.
Gotcha.
That being said, as soon as you have more than like 5 or 10 million left over, there's probably a better option out there. Okay. Like the example is, like, right now, before we even get into it, I am going to have Daniel Ricciardo on my team.
Really?
Absolutely. Beyond the shadow of a doubt. This guy came in 3rd in a driver's championship several years back.
But it's been several years.
It's been several years, but he can do it. And now this is the first year he's back driving a Red Bull. And he's going to be coming in at $5 or $6 million. So if you want a value, he's a bottom tier driver, absolutely. But he has that capability. And when I ran the stats on him, the points per million, he was one of the higher points per million last year, just in the 7 races he drove.
Gotcha. So some of the variables you're looking at is a immediate dollar value.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously he's got experience.
Yep.
He's got winning experience.
Yeah.
But again, it's been a while.
It's been a while, which is why he's worth that $6 million.
So are you looking at him for his relative improvement value more than anything else? Or another variable that needs to be considered is again, like you said, the platform he's driving.
Yeah.
It's a Red Bull car. Where do you go to look in terms of the capability of the vehicles?
Gotcha. I do look at the. Oh, no, sorry.
Here's 19 questions.
No, these are all really good. I am under. Excuse me. I'm under no delusions that Daniel Ricciardo is going to hop in. I think it's AlphaTauri. Is that who he's racing with this year? I forget. I need an AlphaTauri Alpine, one of the two.
Because AlphaTauri is not the fastest.
Whichever one. No, the one, the baby Red Bull. Let me see.
I don't know what that would be yet. No, sorry.
I know, and I should know it off the top of my head. This is proof that I need to stay up on my. Let's see here. I have to go to my little spreadsheet. I think he was AlphaTauri. So for example, he is a great driver, but that car that he's racing just isn't win capable. Yeah. Right? It's not. Sure, it's got a. Let's see, where'd he go? Daniel Ricciardo, AlphaTauri. Okay, cool. Yeah. So he's driving an AlphaTauri. He's not going to win a race. Like, he's just not. He might climb up, but right away he's just not. They don't have enough money, and the AlphaTauris have never won the championship.
Yeah.
But as soon as I'm looking around him, he has the experience, he has the capability. Just right now, I don't think his machine's there. So I look at him, and I'll explain the opposite side. The people who disagree with me, I'll explain what they look at. The way I look at it is you have a driver with all the experience in the world.
Sure.
For one reason or another. This guy has been around in the heyday back before Red Bull was good. All right, he's been on Red Bull before Max Verstappen was there.
Oh yeah, I think they overlapped by 1 year,
something like that.
That's part of the reason he left. He's like, well, this sucks. They're hiring this young upstart, and I've still got my best years ahead of me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So he has all that experience.
Yeah.
So if you take that and put him in a if you put him in a non-winning car right now, they have a pretty good chance of, if that car is capable of doing really well, he'll do well. He won't, at least based on last year, he is a solid driver and he won't crash. He might get crashed into.
I mean, sure.
And he did crash and he break his hand, and we can go do a whole episode about that. Like, that was a choice for him. He could either duck low. He was going around a turn and he saw a car that was spun out into the wall, and it was wet, or at least it had recently rained. And his option was duck low and spin out and end up right where that car was, keep going on the racing line, drive straight and broadside him, or hit the brakes, hit the wall, and not hit the other guy. And he steered it into the wall. And you're supposed to let go before you hit the wall, but then he would have hit the other guy. So he, in the moment, thought all three of those, elected the wall, and broke his hand.
That's pretty awesome.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the kind of driver he is, and I think he's so joyful to put in a...
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
That he's back in the seat. I think he's going to be aggressively cautious. I think he's going to look out for the well-being of the car.
Yeah.
He's going to try to finish higher than he is. He's going to try and qualify well. But he's not going to damage the car, and he's not going to damage the relationships, and he's going to try and finish as high as he can. And I think he'll be a good team player.
Gotcha.
So that's why, for Daniel Ricciardo, he is absolutely going in. Even if I can have a chance to swap him out for, as soon as you have a guy worth $5 million on your roster and you have $5 million left in your bank, well, you can trade him for a driver worth $10 million.
Yep.
And so, which is why, as soon as you have more than $5 or $10 million left in your bank,
you're doing something wrong.
You're doing something wrong. You should be able to get one of those positions, should be able to get, unless, for this example, I believed in a driver for a certain reason.
Yeah, or you're going like full Moneyball.
Going full money, exactly.
Yeah.
If you're doing Moneyball, or like, for example, I didn't believe in Ferrari last year, and it bit me in the ass.
Sure.
But there were times when I left Ferrari sitting on the bench and left money sitting in my bank because I had the best lineup I thought I could get apart from Ferrari.
I got you.
So,
okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, if that answered your question.
That absolutely answered my question.
Sweet. What are the questions?
Nothing off the top right now.
I mean, we're kind of hamstrung until we dive into their rules and stuff like that.
Okay. Oh, hamstrung. You know what? Let me break away from F1 for just 1 second. Okay. Hamstrung. Well-known term.
Yeah.
Ham-fisted. Have you ever heard that term?
Ham-fisted?
Yeah. And
I don't, because if you hamstring, well, maybe. Yeah, no, ham-fisted. That means like heavy, like a heavily.
And yeah, exactly.
Like it's
done very indelicately.
Done very indelicately.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I could see that.
Thank you. This is just a personal vendetta issue that my wife and I've used the term ham-fisted, and she looked at me like I was a crazy person. But again, if we're going based on your initial impression, it sounds like she might be right because
no, and it took me. I was thinking, because where my mind went was, if you hamstring somebody, you take their legs out because you have your hamstrings and you like sever their hamstrings. Like it's bad. It's like, but when I was thinking ham-fisted, I was like hand-fisted. But no, this ham, H-A-M,
like big old,
big old ham.
It's like doing a really bad job telling a subtle joke.
Like or like, and I just like, if as soon as you're working like sides of pork or sides of beef, you're throwing it around. You're not being delicate with it because it's big and it's heavy.
I don't know the etymology for entirely. However,
you know what? Let's ask.
Oh yeah, this is going
to be great.
This is important.
This is very important. Ham. Let's see here. Ham-fisted, clumsy or bludgeoning.
Thank you.
Ham-fisted attempt. Yeah, that's from dictionary.com.
I'm gonna try to incorporate that in our analysis.
We should.
Week to week.
Ham-fisted.
Yeah,
we need to come up.
He's a ham-fisted driver. You know,
we need to come up with catchphrases too. We absolutely should. Because somebody's, man, that dude's ham-fisted. Because we're Americans, right? We can say stuff like ham-fisted.
That's a thing. Yeah,
it is. Oh gosh, but yeah. So that's the answer about the ham-fisted, and the answer about the keeping money in the bank.
Keeping money in the bank. Okay, cool.
Not the best.
No, that logic tracks. Are there any other crucial elements of team like of roster construction or other ways to garner or accumulate points?
There is, and the reason why I'm going to mention these right now is because since we haven't done the deep dive into the 2024 season yet, I want to explain it because then I know about what's going on and I have to justify it. The rest of the magical powers, the special powers you get, are huge players.
Okay.
One of them, so first off, you get your team, and every week one of them gets a DRS boost.
Yes.
Which means they get double point value.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
So, but they also get negative double point value. So as soon as you have Max Verstappen with a DRS boost and he gets 50 points, he actually gets you 100.
Wait, so if he uses his DRS?
So you have to, every race, you have to assign one person on your team as a DRS driver.
Okay.
And that person gets double points.
And so it'll double the value that they bring in.
Exactly.
If that's a negative value, you just use yourself.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So usually you put it on your highest driver, which was Max Verstappen for most people.
I feel like I'm learning craps like in Vegas where there's just like there's so many so many rules and
it
like,
is to bounce it once, but at least one of them has to hit the wall and whatever, however that works. But yeah, so you have your DRS token.
Okay.
That has to, and that's not a special power. That's just every week. That's just natural.
So it has nothing to do with actually using DRS.
No,
it's just a fancy.
But there is a 3x DRS special power.
Okay.
That you have to put on somebody who's not your DRS driver.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what it means is, let's say you had Perez and you had Verstappen on your team.
Okay.
Perez brings in 30, Verstappen brings in 50. Well, for that one race, you put your 3x boost on Max Verstappen. Now your 2x boost has to go somewhere else. You put on your next valuable driver, Sergio Perez.
I see.
So Sergio Perez goes from making 30 to making 60.
Yeah.
Max Verstappen goes from making 50 to making 150.
Okay.
And that one race, you took 50, 60, 70, 80. You took an 80-point pairing.
Yeah.
And turned it into like 260. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So,
and I caution you, and the reason why I'm interjecting is people misuse it. You have to use it correctly. You have to use it on the right race. Otherwise, because last year I was like,
okay. So you have a one-time
3x,
a one-time 2x.
Nope, 2x is constantly.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Every week is 2x.
Oh, I'm with you now. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Fine. Yep. But your 2x has to go to somebody else if you're going to use your 2x driver as your 3x.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And the issue is people use it. Oh, it doesn't really matter what race I go to. Max Verstappen's always going to win.
No.
Why don't I? No. And I used it foolishly. I forget which one I used it on, but it wasn't the best. So you have to do, and that's where this podcast will come into it.
Sure.
Because we'll do research on the tracks and talk about how well people have done in the past and get a more educated.
Well, and I mean, and you have cars that are going to be better on straightaways.
Yep.
And you know, there are going to be certain race courses that don't take top speed into account because they're so technical.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as soon as you say, you know what, I'm going to put my 3X DRS on whatever car this time. That could be the one time that it rains.
Yeah.
They have a horrible qualifying. 2 laps into it, 2 other jokers crash into each other and they put him out and they go negative 10 points. Mm-hmm. But now because you used DRS, now you're negative 30. And then when I used the right DRS and went positive 150, if you use the wrong DRS and they did a bad race and they go negative 30, that's almost a 200 point swing.
Cow. Yeah.
So it's hugely important.
Yeah.
So you have the 3X. You have the replacement if they after qualifying. There's one where it's no market cap. Basically, it's a unlimited money. So doesn't matter. Forget money. You can have anybody on your team you want.
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
But for that week.
For that 1 week, then it reverts back.
Okay.
And again, people misuse it because what I did was, oh sweet. What do I want? I want both Red Bulls. I want both Mercedes. And I want my Ferrari, and I want my one Ferrari driver, and I want my Red Bull, and I want my Mercedes constructor. I have all the best people. Somebody has to lose.
Exactly.
And you just
put all your eggs.
And then as soon as you're driving around and suddenly, for some reason, Lewis Hamilton can't get past 6th, and George Russell bumps tires with somebody and he goes out. Well, guess what? Now you have 2 DNFs.
Yeah.
And it's, so you the bonuses are framed. We look at it and say, wow, I can have no limits, but you're going to suck if it's bad. If you choose poorly, then it's going to be really bad.
Oh yeah. You have Sainz and Verstappen crash into each other.
Exactly.
You get 2 DNFs.
Another token, I didn't mention this before, but you can only in between races change 2 drivers. Okay. You get 2 free changes in between each race. one of the changes carries over to the next. So you can't rinse and replace your entire team after each race.
Oh,
you can only sell 2 people and hire 2 new people.
So there are no overhauls. You've got
there are no overhauls.
That's an important detail.
But you do go negative 4 fantasy points for everyone after those 2 that you want. So you can do a full overhaul.
Oh, okay, but at a cost. At a cost. Okay.
And I say all that to say, so you can accumulate it. So eventually you can have three swaps saved up.
Yeah.
Right. And then you can change half your drivers. You can change both your constructors. Like
sure.
You can. One of the magical powers is you have unlimited trades.
Oh, that's
so cool. Then you can go, and that doesn't revert back.
Gotcha.
So you will sit there, and when I'm trying to, if I have like one of my third team or a team that's not really doing well, when I have 2 weeks before the next race, I will use that magical trade one and just swap drivers in and out constantly.
But that's still within the confines of your budget.
That's still within the confines of the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, you still are budget constrained, but you can make all the switches you want.
Absolutely. Okay, so. Yeah. So I would imagine that's going to be the one special ability that is probably used. I wouldn't say the least, but that sounds like something has gone horribly wrong over the course of the season. I need to hit the reset button.
Yeah.
Okay.
I need to figure this out because and this is a tool I use. It's nothing's final until you hit send. So you can move drivers in and out.
Oh, I see.
Right, but then it'll say, "Hey, you've used up how many of this, and here's all this. Hit send."
Okay. If you want to proceed, you will be.
If you want to proceed, you will be using this value. Is this what you want? Yes, and you approve. And what I accidentally found myself in is at one time for one of my teams, I was just trading people in and out, trying to see what the good lineup would be.
Sure.
And I went to cancel it, but I accidentally approved it.
Oh no!
So I went negative. I used up all 2 of my major spots.
Plus what, 6
plus
other?
Like 3. So it was just drivers. It went 4. So 4 times 5 is, I went negative 20.
Oh yeah, you have 7 people.
Yeah, but so I went negative 20.
Okay.
Right. I was like what I do,
yeah,
right? So what I had to do was I had to go and I used my special power for unlimited changes.
Sure.
And that erased it.
Oh, so you can do that retroactively.
Yeah. Well, because you can go back and you can readjust it. And you can add your token anytime.
Yay for good IT infrastructure. Right. Good job, F1.
So we have unlimited swaps. We have limitless bankroll.
Mm-hmm.
We have the 3x DRS boost. We have your emergency last second swap. And
Diamond fingers.
That was it. I forget what this is going to be bad. I forget what the other ones were. What was it? Because I thought there were 6 of them for sure. There was limitless, unlimited swaps. I don't know. We can go into it later when we do the. I won't sit here and get dead aired with why I'm sitting here trying to think.
Oh no, this is great because again, I'm coming up with completely arbitrary ones. Like suddenly your driver is attuned to the feelings of his car.
That would be awesome.
Like automotive empathy. Empathy. It's like we won, but he is sad.
But he is sad because he worked so hard.
He does not like the hot fun.
You want to know? And this is, and then we're getting off topic, but we can go ahead and call it here soon. But so the teams. This is interesting. This has nothing to do with fantasy, by the way. Just Formula One. So the teams have multiple, basically, loadouts of all their tools and equipment.
Okay.
The cars go place to place to place.
Yeah.
But their tools hop skip. So all of their equipment that they have, the air guns and the whatever, and all the headsets and the radios and the blah, 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 like they'll use that in race number 1, and then they will freight it to race number 3. And race number 2 is already pre-staged, and that stuff will go to race number 4.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wonder what the quality control steps are like.
Probably ridiculous.
Both for security and for like just verification of functionality.
Oh yeah, I have no idea. It must be ridiculous. But the reason why I bring it up is you're required to have. So they have all your regular tires.
Yeah.
Then you have, they call them intermediate tires, which are half rain, half slicks. And they have like basically slick on the outside, tread on the inside. And then they have full rain tires.
Yeah.
That are just all your aqua, like the in my head, it's like the Goodyear Eagle Aqua Tread, right? It's like all the rain stuff. But the problem is with all those, as soon as they just burn up faster, right?
Sure.
But you're required to have them all on hand. So this first race that happens at the end of the month in Bahrain, the desert in the Persian Gulf, they're by a Formula One law required to have rain tires there.
Oh, that's so
So
weird.
they had to they had to pay the money to ship rain tires to Bahrain, where it rains once or twice a year.
I can only imagine just some of the logistical nonsense that they have to deal with from week to week for, just local government regulations.
Oh, can you imagine?
Just cultural norms and it's stuff. It's stuff that the principal staff is not going to worry about. It's just the support teams have to have some wild stories.
Can you imagine? There's some of those I can only imagine trying to get into Azerbaijan or Saudi Arabia, and you're like, "Hi, we have all of this stuff."
Right, and there's a race. Is there a race in Singapore? I think there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, and going to Singapore, and it's like a million degrees and humid. Oh yeah. And everything else is man, it's. Oh, it's great. But no, you're right. That the logistics train for Formula One. That's actually one thing they're wanting to do. They reorganize the races this year, allegedly, so they're not having to crisscross the globe.
Okay, yeah.
So continent by continent.
It's more of a linear, international road trip.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Instead of no globe trotting.
Yeah,
like they did.
Yep. Well, cool, right, man. Now I think this has been a great summary.
Yeah,
I'm excited for next week to actually we'll draft live and you can walk me through.
Yeah.
And so I make. Going through the actual.
Oh yes. So what I'll do is I will get in. I'll read the rules.
Okay.
And that's one of the big things that this podcast will help with. Is I'm going to read, assimilate the rules, and be able to explain them.
That's great.
Because there was a lot of times, when I first started, when I was in Bahrain, and I first started playing Fantasy Formula One, we would get a lot of really smart people together and go, what are they talking about with this?
Yeah.
And how does it work?
Yeah.
Just like Wisdom, all the different ways to, as soon as I started explaining all the different ways to score points, it's like, man, is this, how did I learn all this? Well, I just took it from just watching and playing and being like, how the hell did this work whatever way? So I'm going to figure out the rules, and I'm going to get a team. I'm not going to pull the trigger on my team yet.
Okay.
But I'm going to kind of get a couple sample lineups going and stuff like that. Then when we get together to do the next episode, we're going to actually share the screen.
Yeah.
And that way you can show your login, and then we can talk people through how to get registered and things like that. So that's what we can provide.
That sounds great. In the meantime, I'm going to try to get smart on the existing roster of drivers and do what I can in the short period of time. And then,
It sounds good. Cheers.
Cool, man.